Given the government decision to intensify the level of service provided to people who are long-term unemployed, as set out in the Pathways to Work policy statement from 2013, the additional capacity secured under the JobPath contracts is focused on supporting people who are long-term unemployed. All counties now have a JobPath service, and the service is delivered in over 80 locations around the country. 151,000 people have engaged with the JobPath service to end February this year. Each person is assigned a personal advisor who assesses their skills, experience, challenges and work goals, and agrees a personal progression plan that includes a schedule of activities, actions and job-focused targets. I want to emphasise that JobPath has not replaced any existing service provision, either that directly provided by staff within the department or that provided under other external activation services. I also want to emphasise that JobPath does not have any negative impact on the existing local employment service and jobs clubs services. The companies are paid a registration fee for each client who engages with them, and when a person secures employment, a job sustainment fee is payable on completion of at least each 13-week period of sustained employment of no less than 30 hours per week. To the end of 2017, a total of £84 million has been paid to both contractors, and this is broken down as follows: £1.2 million in 2015, £25.2 million in 2016, and £54 million in 2017. Participants with JobPath service are not required to sign a contract with the JobPath companies, but they are, in the same manner as all customers referred to the department's internal and external activation services, requested to agree and sign a personal progression plan.
I was surprised with two comments you made in relation to page 2 and 3, where you said, I want to emphasise that JobPath has not replaced any existing service provision, either that provided directly by the staff within the department or by other external activation services. You went on to say, I want to emphasise that JobPath does not have any negative impact on the existing of local employment services and job clubs.
I mean, I would agree with the Chairman. All the anecdotal evidence coming to me suggests that the LES and the job clubs have been adversely affected. You know, 18% finish up in full-time employment. I think that's a damning indictment, quite frankly. You can respond. I'll go through the thing and you can respond in your own time. But I think that's pretty grim, especially for the amount of money we're spending. I noticed, by the way, that when you're referring to the satisfaction levels, the surveys that were done there, you don't refer to the numbers polled there at all. But anyway, that's just a side issue. We have repeated requests here about people who are running CE schemes and people who are managing CE schemes, and from representatives of communities who have benefited from CE schemes. There is a rule that if somebody is engaged by JobPath, once JobPath enters the situation, you're ineligible to go on a CE scheme. You do say in your statement that you're eligible for further education and training and claiming expenses, etc. I'd like to know what that figure actually came to. But anyway, the main focus I want to come on now is the CE schemes. What is the origin of that rule? Is that rule statute based, or is this just some internal rule that the department applies itself? I want to know that, and I want to know what the justification for that is.
It's not anecdotal evidence. This is evidence first-hand that many people are left sitting in front of computers week in, week out, and left to their own devices, and no intensive support given to them. You also mentioned the personal progression plan. Now, you failed to state categorically, and I'll ask you a straight question. Is that a contract, yes or no? Because certainly speaking to many people and former advisors within JobPath and Thoras Nua, they are told when they get the job that do not let anybody leave the office until they sign that. That is essentially the contract, and if they don't sign that, they will not get payment, sustained payment. So is it a contract, yes or no? Because certainly you would be aware of the court case that was taken by Fagan versus, I think it was CTEC, was it? And not only did the judge state that he didn't have to sign the personal progressive plan, that the penalties that had been put in place had to be fully reinstated and backdated. So it's not anecdotal evidence that numbers have been diminished going over to LES. It's fact, and I've got parliamentary questions that show categorically that right across the state, referrals to LES are down right across the board. So it's not anecdotal evidence, it's solid evidence that the creation of JobPath has had a direct impact on LES now. Because I think that Fagan versus CTEC has serious ramifications, implications for the rollout of JobPath and the signing of the personal progressive plan.
And that is that your department has said that you wouldn't be favourably disposed to CTEC or Thoras Nua appearing here before the committee to give evidence. Would you comment on that and explain if that's true, and if it's true, why? If one is engaged with CTEC or Thoras Nua, are you then off the live register and do not appear as part of the stats of unemployed? Because I have queries here that I've put through your department where an individual, I don't want to use names and I won't use names here, there's a two-pronged edge to it, was told that once they're in CTEC, they're on the live register. They were told this by CTEC. In relation to that High Court case, it was, the judgment wasn't given in favour of Fagan because the payments were reinstated by yourselves beforehand. Can you comment on that? Why the payments were reinstated all of a sudden and before the High Court got to rule? And would it be your estimation that if the High Court got to rule that might in a way have further implications for other individuals who are on the scheme? Because, this is why I have page 6 in my brain. In page 6 in your whatever you call it, presentation to us, there is a thing here on the question of individuals signing contracts with private companies. Participants are not required to sign a contract with JobPath, but they are, in the same manner as all customers referred to the department's internal and external activation service, requested to agree and sign a PPP, a personal progressive plan. Should they refuse to sign it as Fagan did, are they liable to penalties? They describe the system as one that's becoming more alienating and punitive, where welfare recipients feel humiliated, degraded, coerced by sanctioning processes and increasingly experience anxiety, depression and erosion of personal agency.
And in the judgment that Mr Duggan had made in respect of the case we've discussed earlier, his decision not to proceed with the court judgment was on the basis that not only has the applicant has his deducted monies returned, he has been advised that the penalties and deductions were erroneously applied to him. Is it the case that penalties and deductions which are applied on the basis that somebody has not agreed to sign a personal progression plan but is nonetheless willing to cooperate are erroneous and that they should not be applied? One other area where the Minister was very clear, she told me that people should be able to take the personal progression plan away from a meeting and to seek advice on it and come back and suggest amendments.
Does the signing of a PPP trigger a payment at that point? And you might address that very directly, please.
Just on the Fagan case, you said you don't want to refer to it anymore. OK, that's fine, but the department said that penalties and deductions were erroneously applied to him because he refused. I think that is the core point, that he refused to sign the personal progression plan. So I asked a specific question. On that basis, will the department continue now to penalise anyone else that refuses to sign the PPP? So,
can I just talk about personal progression plans for a minute, President? I think it's the context here that needs to be explained. And I think the Deputy Brady, asked a very direct question: is a contract? It's not. It's an agreement between the client or customer or the person who's seeking receiving job seekers payments and their personal advisor on how they agree to proceed in terms of making them more job ready and seeking employment. There is no direct penalty if a person does not sign a personal progression plan. There is no direct penalty if a person does not sign a personal progression plan.
In itself, it's not a ground.
In itself, it's not a ground.
many cases there where people have said up front, I'm willing to engage, I just don't want to sign this because I see it as a contract.
No.
Just that direct question around, does the signing of the personal payment progression plan trigger the payment from the department to...
Thank you, Senator.
In terms of whether or not we pay JobPath providers the initial registration fee, the signature on a PPP is not in itself a trigger for the payment. What the trigger for the payment is the person engaging with the provider. The signature on a PPP can be used as evidence for that engagement, and in most cases it would be.
Signature indicates engagement. So in 1%, where it doesn't necessarily indicate engagement. You don't really. What you're saying is that it does trigger the payment or the non-payment.
Yes.
In practical terms.
No, in practical terms, a completed PPP agreed between the personal advisor and the client is evidence of engagement.
Well, it's not completed if it's not signed. Is that what you're saying?
No, it may well be if it's agreed between the personal advisor and the client.
Let's not get bogged down, but I think, Mr. Conlon, it's fair to say that it would be extremely unusual for a payment to be made without a signed PPP. Am I correct?
That would be correct.
Hello, my name is Jeff Rudd. I am the founder of UnitedPeople. Damien Fagan's case currently is continuing on in the Supreme Court. He was turned down for a judicial review, as you now have noted, because he was paid money back at the last minute. He was, however, found to be justified in taking his legal case to the High Court, and the judge agreed with him that his rights were infringed for they trying to impose a PPP, a personal contract, against his will, which he had the lawful right to decline. In the judge's verdict, a number of aspects were overlooked completely. Damien had applied to the court to have a number of issues resolved. These issues were completely ignored. As such, his case now is going to the Supreme Court for a further review of these aspects. We shall keep you posted as to how this case progresses.